Hey there, and welcome to my channel, The Paper Bag Investor. Today I want to talk about Tesla 2020 Q3 earnings. Should you buy, should you hold, should you sell before the earnings? Earnings will take place at the end of the trading day, October 21st. And make sure you stick around to the end of the video so I can tell you should you buy, sell, or hold, what's my opinion at least, before earnings. So let's get into it. And before I go much further, I want to give a quick disclaimer that I am not a personal financial advisor. I am a guy with a paper bag on his head who loves investing and thinking about the future. And if you love investing and thinking about the future, I encourage you hit that subscribe button down below. While you're at it, hit that like button, ding, really helps me out. So Tesla, like any other publicly traded company, reports earnings every 3 months on a quarterly basis, and their fiscal quarters line up with the calendar quarters. So you have January, February, March, April, May, June, and now this quarter, Q3, is for July, August, September. In Q3, Tesla reported a few weeks ago that they produced about 145,000 vehicles, and they delivered about 140,000, just under 140,000 vehicles, which are both record production and delivery numbers for the quarter for Tesla, which is amazing, but it really is unfortunate because the growth story is over. Just kidding. The growth story is not over. A lot of people that think Tesla is going to fail have been saying for years that the growth story is over. But if you know me at all, on my channel at all, I think this is a lot of foolishness. I think electric vehicles are inherently better than traditional ICE vehicles, ICE vehicles, internal combustion engine vehicles. And there's a lot of advantages, safety advantages, performance advantages, environmental advantages to electric vehicles, and those advantages are only going to increase with time as the technology gets better. And a lot like other industries, like the cell phone industry, for example, there was a lot of players in the whole industry before Tesla or before Apple came along and really changed the whole industry and the landscape to smartphones and still dominate that whole landscape, at least in terms of profits. And that was before that, there was basically a whole bunch of cell phone makers. They made a whole bunch of bland, very normal cell phones, and Apple came along and really disrupted that. Same thing's happening with vehicles and Tesla, and the growth story still has tons of growth ahead of it. And the growth story has been huge for Tesla, leading up to this 2020 Q3, which is record numbers. I'm going to play a little clip I found on Twitter the other day from somebody I really like their account on Twitter. It's called @ICannot_enough. I'll play the clip here and comment on it. So basically just shows year by year. So in 2008, they sold 90 vehicles and had huge growth. 2009, then 2010, a little bit of a step back. It shows year by year their full deliveries. In 2013, that's when the stock really took off. I wish I had bought before that. I was watching a little bit. 22,000 deliveries for that year. Continue to grow, continue to grow, continue to grow. I just love this graph. As you see this exponential curve forming. 2016, 17, 18, they had 245,000. 2019, 367,000. And so far, 430,000 vehicles in 2020. Pardon me, I read the graph wrong. That's trailing 12 months, so that would be the last quarter of 2019 plus the 3 quarters of this year would be 430,000. Really, this is just the tip of the iceberg for Tesla in my mind. The biggest automakers in the world, Toyota, Volkswagen, each do about 9 million vehicles a year, and there's roughly 90 to 100 million vehicles a year sold. Though that amount is shrinking. That's the overall 90 to 100 million vehicles are sold. And Tesla, so they really just have a small bite of that still, but they're growing exponentially and they're production constrained still at this point. If they could produce more vehicles, they would be selling more vehicles. And of course, they did actually produce a little bit more than they sold last quarter, but there's also always logistical issues as you produce a little bit and then shipping and actually delivering to the final customer. So those delivery numbers can be a little bit higher and then a little bit lower than the overall units produced in any given quarter. I just want to reiterate, in my mind, these numbers, these production delivery numbers are very exciting when they came out. Very, very excited for those because they really just continue to show this huge exponential curve that Tesla's on. And I think their goal is by the later 2020s, they could be up to 20 million vehicles a year in sales, more than Volkswagen and Toyota combined. So every time you see a Volkswagen and Toyota on the street, just imagine that is a Tesla plus a few more Teslas. That's how much by the end of the decade. It doesn't mean every one of those will be converted, because the average lifespan of a vehicle maybe is 15 years. So even at those kind of rates, it would still take 15 years to convert all those to, say, Teslas in the whole world. But that's one way to picture in the future how many Teslas are just going to be everywhere, which for me as a Tesla investor is very, very exciting. And really, there's no real reason why they would even stop there. Potentially, they could actually go further than that and sell more than 20 million vehicles a year, maybe even 30 million, somewhere in that range, 30, 40 million. And maybe there's 80 million vehicles sold globally. Maybe it shrinks from the 90 to 100 million. So maybe 80 million are sold globally in the future. Tesla could conceivably in the future, in my mind, be selling 30, 40 million vehicles a year. Obviously, all different makes and models to fit different classes of consumers and different countries, geographies, and different needs they might have. But in my mind, that is possible. They might have half the vehicle market. So this quarter, Q3 2020, when they release earnings tomorrow, what can we kind of expect? We will expect that they are going to post a profitable quarter, a GAAP profitable quarter, GAAP, which stands for generally accepted accounting principles. And in my mind, from here on out, basically every quarter, they should be posting GAAP profitable quarters. How much profit they actually make in this quarter, we will see when they release earnings. But we can be almost certain that they will be GAAP profitable this quarter and probably every quarter again from here on out. Another thing that's interesting that could happen really at any point in any time now, and actually expected to happen 3 months ago at the end of last quarter, was the S&P 500 inclusion, which again, many people expected to happen 3 months ago. I thought it was going to happen. It was even sort of priced into the stock at that point, and then the stock took a tumble afterwards. And this is important just basically because it's an index fund that tracks the 500 biggest market cap and sector leading companies in the United States. And a lot of people buy this index fund. A lot of different funds just track the index fund and basically copy what's exactly in that index fund. So there's a lot of pension money. There's a lot of large institutional money that buys the index fund. And of course, if there's a move to include it in the fund, then suddenly there could be a lot of buying power wanting to buy Tesla stock. And of course, the S&P 500 actually works on a market cap weighted principle. So it means the bigger the market cap of the company in the S&P 500 means the more allocation you put towards that company in that relative sense. And a lot of the biggest companies in there are going to take the biggest allocation, and Tesla actually would be a very large company in that fund at its current evaluation. So it means there'd be a lot of buying power going to that. So I could expect maybe 3% to 10%, maybe even 12%. Since there's a lot of hype and energy around the Tesla stock, I could see that potentially happening when S&P 500 inclusion is announced. And that could happen after this quarter. It could happen in the future. I actually really don't know. And no one really knows for sure. Another thing with the earnings that I'm very excited about hearing any comments on is the full self-driving beta, which is set to be released later in the evening on October 20th. Basically, what Elon has said is that the current full self-driving whole system as a whole and software basically had a capping point or limiting point where it couldn't really improve much past that. And they've worked on it, I think, for a couple of years, a complete rewrite of the full self-driving system, which somehow somehow can create more of an actual 3D image or knowledge or sort of in the computer's brain to process the world around it with the cameras. And I don't understand it all. And as an investor, you really don't need to fully understand all that technical side of that completely. But you do need to understand that this could be a huge improvement towards full self-driving. And of course, the cars aren't going to drive full self-driving, but really just the ability of the cars and whole neural network to learn is the most important thing. How quickly can they learn, and how far can they learn? Can they learn enough that they can become as good as a human driver in all driving conditions? Actually, I would say as better than a good human driver in all driving conditions. That is the goal of full self-driving. And so with Tesla just releasing that the day before earnings, we'll probably hear some comments on that. And it'll be really interesting to track that in the coming weeks and months as we see progress on that and see how well it actually works. So thank you guys for sticking around this far through the video. I said at the start, I was going to let you know, should you buy, sell, or hold Tesla stock before earnings day? And I just want to reiterate what I said at the beginning, that I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a guy with a paper bag on his head who just loves investing and thinking about the future. But I would be of the camp that would say we should hold or even buy before earnings day or after earnings day, because my view on investing is as better to be a long-term investor who really tries to think 5 years out, 10 years out into the future and see great companies that could have huge growth over that time. And I really love Tesla. It's my favorite company. I have most of my portfolio into Tesla. And as I said earlier in the video, I still think they have tons of growth ahead of them. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen in the day or two after earnings are released. The stock could definitely go up or down 5 or 10%. It's Tesla we're talking about. It's one of the most volatile stocks on the market. But I really believe that in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now even, Tesla could be worth much more than it currently is today. So in my mind, the whole company as a whole is a buy before earnings or after earnings. And really my strategy with companies like this is when I see volatile news coming, I buy the dip. So if it's a company I love and if I have more money to invest that's coming to, I'd be able to move into my investment portfolio and sitting there as cash. When a company dips or falls for some kind of news that in my mind is really short-term news or short-sighted news and doesn't show any kind of fundamental problem with the company, then I buy those dips. Then as the company falls, I buy those dips. And just knowing that the company was at a higher valuation previous to that sort of short-term news gives me added confidence that it's still going in that trajectory. So anyways, those are a few of my thoughts for you for Tesla Q3 earnings. And if you found this video helpful, I encourage you hit that subscribe button, follow along with me, and become a better investor. The point of my channel is I want to strip back a lot of the common assumptions around personal finance, investing, and see investing with new eyes, new angles, and see how can we do the very best with our own personal investments. And with that sort of model philosophy, I want to look at high growth, long-term investments that I see that are really great opportunities. So if that sounds intriguing to you, if this has really been helpful to you, then I encourage you to hit that subscribe button. And thanks for watching. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.